Let's talk about a story that's all over the papers, all over the media for the last 2 days, and that's the broadcaster Danny Baker, who's been fired by the BBC after he tweeted a joke about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex son using a picture of a chimpanzee. It's almost hard to sort of believe that he actually did this, but yes, he actually did. He says it wasn't a racist tweet. He says that actually you'd have to have a diseased mind to think it was a racist tweet. It's a picture that he has used many, many times before, a black and white photograph showing a well-dressed man and woman holding hands with a suited chimpanzee. The caption was, "Royal baby leaves hospital." But in the context of a mixed-race child, of a mixed-race Duchess of Sussex, and the allegations claims that she has suffered from quite a lot of racist abuse online. Surely anybody who's even looked at a newspaper in the last 5 years would have known this was unacceptable. But should he have been fired? Let's talk to the editor of Spiked, Brendan O'Neill. Good morning to you, Brendan.
Hi, Julia.
Let's just ask serious questions then. Was the tweet racist?
I think it was really stupid and thoughtless.
But not racist?
He should have known that many people would have interpreted it as racist. But I think that when we are talking about racism, we have to think about the person's intention. We have to ask ourselves, did this person intend to make a racist comment? And in this case, I really don't think he did. I actually buy his argument that he thought it was funny, that he thought it was just making fun of the ridiculous nature of royalty and so on. I actually accept that explanation, and I'm pretty shocked that so many other people are unwilling to accept that explanation.
But the interesting thing is, I mean, I when I first saw that picture, and I know, Danny Baker, something some people perceive as a good bloke on the left. I'm not aware of him ever uttering or being accused of racism before, and I'm thinking it's a one-off. And I tweeted out, look, I'm struggling to come up with a reasonable explanation for this tweet, but I'm failing to find one. His response effectively was, look, that he has tweeted out this picture many times before, and he genuinely didn't think of it as being racist. He certainly wasn't his intention. I say I'm willing to accept that, and yet he must have known the context in which this child was being born. Now, look, I don't, maybe because I'm white and therefore it's not so significant for me that this child has mixed race heritage and is a member of the royal family. And you see these pictures of grandmother and a great grandmother with the Prince Harry and Meghan and their newborn baby, and one is black, one is white, and this is a big message. But I from everyone I've spoken to who does come from either ethnic minority or mixed race heritage, this is extraordinarily significant. This is something. This is a statement about being part of this country, about acceptance, about a change in our society, and it is significant. I can't believe that someone of Danny Baker's intelligence and experience and age wasn't aware of all of the context in which he posted that tweet, in which case, regardless of whether you think he was racist in his intent, it showed such poor judgment. Do the BBC have grounds to sack him simply on his poor judgment?
I don't think so. I completely agree with you. I think it did reflect poor judgment. He should have thought more carefully. Something in his mind should have said, hold on, this is a picture of a chimpanzee, and that is an old racist trope, so I should stop while I'm ahead. Something should have said that to him, but it didn't. So there was a glitch in his matrix, if you like. Something went wrong, and he made a misjudgment, a very bad misjudgment. But this is the thing I find most shocking about this case, is the swiftness with which he was sacked by the BBC, because this is someone who posted a really stupid tweet, deleted it within minutes, apologised for it.
Well, did he, though? I'm thinking the failure to apologise. He accused the people who said it was racist of having the problem.
The first apology was a bit lame. He then did apologise for what he referred to as his grotesque error. So this is what I really dislike about the Twitter mob culture, which is even when someone does eventually apologise and basically asks for repentance, the Twitter mob still says, we don't accept your request for repentance, and we're still going to cast you out into the social wilderness for the next few years. There's a real element of cruelty to that. So as I was watching all of this unfold, there was a point when I thought the reaction against Danny Baker is not actually about anti-racism. It's about punishing someone for having made a mistake. And I just think that's a bit vindictive.
Well, and on this, I certainly do agree. Now, his earlier apology had said, sorry, my gag pic of the little fella in the posh outfit has whipped some up. Never occurred to me because, well, mine not disease. So, as soon as those good enough to point out its possible connotations got in touch, down it came, and that's it. He then spoke about how the BBC had been weaselly in their decision to sack him and has been complaining about that. But I'm very much in agreement with you on the issue of the Twitter mob, because we have seen these these witch hunts, nearly always against people perceived to be on the right rather than people perceived to be on the left. And it's interesting, actually, how many of the usual suspects who would go piling in, demanding retribution, demanding a sacking, didn't pile in this time, and indeed were defending Danny Baker. If it had been someone else, if say someone, a well-known Brexiteer, naming no names, had posted such a picture, I think they would have been hounded from polite society entirely by now.
That's absolutely right. There's the real problem with the kind of criticisms of the Twitter mob is that it's so inconsistent. So right-wing people will join a Twitter mob against lefties, and left-wing people, of course, which is far more common, unfortunately, will always join in Twitter mobs against people on the right. So I think we need some consistency on this. I think we do need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think we have to recognise that, political correctness presents itself as this kind of happy, clappy, lovely ideology all about fairness and equality. But in fact, it's an increasingly cruel ideology. It is one that will cast you out of society if you're a feminist who doesn't think that men can become women, or if you're someone who is uncomfortable with certain elements of Islam, or in the case of Danny Baker, if you're someone who just makes a really stupid mistake. I just think a society that cannot accept different opinions and cannot forgive people who make mistakes is really a society that's going in the wrong direction.
I've known him for 30 years. He's not a racist, but is he a victim of a kind of subconscious racism that affects so many people? So those are the conundrums with which we'd like you to wrestle.
OK, well, in relation to Danny Baker, I think the first thing to say is that this isn't for me to judge as to whether he is or is not a racist individual. I think, for a start, the tweet that he sent out, I think what we have to say is that from a psychological point of view, first of all, we need to acknowledge, we're three white people sitting here talking about this. And, for somebody who there is a long history, both in their own personal lives and in their cultural history, of racist abuse with that connotation to that
like
connection.
our caller Anthea yesterday, who said, I spent my whole life growing up being called monkey, gollywog and worse.
Yes. So I think what we have to acknowledge is that there is undoubtedly a connotation there that I think psychologically we have to acknowledge that even if, sometimes people who are not racists, as in they don't have any kind of negative views of a particular person because of their race, can do something inadvertently that is a racist act, if you like, because it has such deep meaning and connotation for many, many people.
On the subject of inadvertent, you see, 'cause he uses pictures of monkeys a lot on social media.
Right.
One would argue it is one of his things.
It's featuring his radio show. Famous people dressed as monkeys dressed as famous people.
It's because they do have other connotations. They have connotations such as cheeky monkey, for example. So there are other connotations. But I think what we have to look at here is the psychological process of where does that sort of part of our brain kick in that says, actually, I might not, have negative views towards people because of their race. However, this that I'm about to share does have those views. And do I hold back on that?
Just preempting that, you see, because I'm sitting there thinking, when I'm on social media, it's a very rare day that I post a picture unless it's something I've just taken. Here's a picture of baby daughter.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
The act of searching out a picture to tweet in connection with the royal family.
That is an unusual act.
It opens the door, doesn't it? Because you then think, well, okay. I mean, I don't know what else the image is supposed to. I just don't know what else I'm supposed to make of the image. It's a tweet in connection to a royal birth.
Yeah.
And one of the few things I know about this particular royal birth, the USP, is that it's the first mixed-race baby.
I know. The thing is, what we have to understand is that it's very difficult sometimes to understand what's inside somebody's mind. So I can understand, this is not excusing it in any way, but I can understand why somebody who maybe hasn't thought about the connotation and the racist connection there might be saying something about a child being a cheeky monkey or being dressed up, as in there is a lot of sort of anti-royal talk about how having a baby in the public eye in the royal family puts them in a sort of almost like they're going to grow up in a zoo, almost like they're going to be, pampered that way. So I can understand that. I'm not saying that's what it was, but only really Danny Baker knows that.
He said
it was to do with class. Well, I think that is a plausible explanation, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be offensive to people.
Well, the chimpanzee was dressed in posh clothes and a bowler hat and had a sort of walking cane. And
yes,
the couple
he was
with were very posh.
So the
well.
PG Tips ads with the chimps carrying the piano up and down the stairs, wearing
that
overalls.
Kind of
they were working class chimps. Is that right? I just need some help.
That's what
chimps and social class. No. I'm just asking questions. I'm not asking for justification. I'm just trying to get a handle.
We're trying to understand it. We're trying to unpack it. I mean, that's what I think we have to be careful about here. We have to be careful, but I would say that anybody, especially in a position of responsibility, who's a broadcaster, who's speaking to the nation, I would say that we have a responsibility, as you know, I myself work in a public way, to understand the connotations that might be hurtful and insulting to other people. And that's when we do need to hold back, even if we don't ourselves perceive ourselves to have negative views against someone on the basis of their race. So I think it was a great error in misjudgment at the very least.
Can I ask about what happened after he tweeted? So the tweet goes out.
Okay.
This is the afternoon before yesterday.
Yeah.
And it immediately picks up a degree of opprobrium.
Yes.
And he takes it down. And then he issues this very peculiar apology in inverted commas, which I think was possibly even more ill-advised than the original tweet, in which I'm paraphrasing, he basically said, I didn't see any racist connotations.
Right.
People that do, and I'm paraphrasing, but people that do have diseased minds. I don't have a diseased mind.
Right.
I didn't see the problem. If you think there's a problem, you have a diseased mind.
You have the issue.
So in that case, he's transferring all personal responsibility for that error to the people that are calling him out for making that error.
Yes, I think, again, my job as a psychologist is to understand what is happening in that person's mind when they behave like that. And I would say that at that point, he's likely to be experiencing his action as, oh dear, what have I just done?
I would have thought so.
The defence mechanism there, a common defence mechanism, is to try to point the finger elsewhere and to say, oh, if you perceive what I just did as a problem, the problem's with you. I think on greater reflection, there's probably an understanding that actually my error was in thinking that this would be in any way seen as funny, when actually this is seen as very hurtful, very offensive, very triggering for many, many people in this world. And I think that's where a greater amount of time and reflection would have been prudent after making that mistake.
I'll hold my hand up. I don't particularly want to revisit the episode because it's a long time ago and let sleeping dogs fly and all that.
Yeah.
But I've done things before on television where I had a very clear idea in my mind what I was trying to project.
Yes.
Near the knuckle, on the edge, but I was very clear that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But once it was put out there, it was perceived by everybody else as
people
the total opposite. I was trying to be ironic. The irony went straight over people's heads.
Yes.
And so, and at the time, it's people are going, you have to apologise. And I think, but it's
But
not me
you
that's
didn't
got it.
mean
It's not me
it.
that's got
Yes.
it wrong. That's not what I was trying to do. They've not understood. They've taken it literally. They've not seen the smile or the wink. But
Yes,
you're right.
yes.
That for me,
it's about the impact on other people. It's about being sensitive to other people's needs and experiences.
it's just as you said. Actually, it's about on reflection.
Yes.
When you said that,
Yeah.
on reflection,
Needs careful thought.
I could understand that whatever I was aiming to do, I didn't pull it off.
You got it wrong.
And that was, and even if my target, my ambition was the right thing to do, at least in my mind, or
Yes.
I could get away with it.
Yes.
How it turned out, I got it wrong.
I mean, intention counts for a lot. When we understand someone's intention, I think that is important. We know that even from our justice system, that we take on board what was someone's intention. That is important, but action is also really important, and the impact of our actions on others is also something we need to consider.
So, from the ill-advised first apology, I think you have to give some credit to Danny Baker, because he spent, from what I can gather on the TV news, most of yesterday standing on the doorstep of his home, talking to journalists from TV and newspapers, pretty much all day, explaining his position, apologising, repeating his apology. Today on the news, they're saying he wants to make a formal apology.
Yes.
If at the end of this apology journey, will the public forgive him? Should the public forgive him? Can we just draw a line under it and move on? Bearing in mind, you've got the likes of Alan Sugar, who, in my view, has said far more racist things. He's still employed by the BBC.
I think it's too soon, really, for us to be talking about forgiveness of him and his actions, because there are going to be people out there, many, many people, who are very hurt, very offended, very upset about this at the moment. And so at the moment, I think it's too soon to talk about that. However, what I would say is that I do think intention counts. So I think many people out there will be thinking, look, it was a very bad call and it was a bad thing to do, but actually his intentions were different. However, I still think that he has a responsibility as a broadcaster to understand and be sensitive to the experiences of his listeners and the world
What
in
about
general.
a mass apology where we get Danny Baker together with Prince Harry, and Prince Harry can talk about and explain why he made a mistake dressing as a Nazi guard, and explain why we've forgiven him for that, and then maybe he can forgive Danny for dissing his child if indeed Danny was dissing his child, because it is weird, isn't it, that sitting here that the father of the child himself appeared on the front page of a newspaper. He didn't want to, but he was nevertheless dressed like a Nazi.
Yes, but I think many people haven't. I think we have to disconnect. There's kind of understanding and accepting that people are human beings and they make mistakes and they make errors of judgment. And then there's forgiving a particular act. And I think there are many people out there who haven't forgiven that act and would still be very offended by that. And I think it was a poor judgment call on his part. He was a young man at the time. It's very offensive to people. And I think although we live in a world where some people would argue you can go too far towards political correctness, where it becomes almost a bit of a sort of looking for errors where it really wasn't intended to be there. I think we have to be aware of that, but we need to keep this dialogue open, that we have to understand that our actions sometimes, whilst our intentions might be honourable or they might be stupid at the best of times, sometimes our actions cause hurt and distress to other people, and we need to be aware of that, and that's what we need to apologise for. And I think that's what maybe needs to be said, just from a point of view of repairing relations here. I think what needs to be said is that there was a lack of understanding and appreciation of the impact of those actions.